It's that time again. It's the Berkey and the Badger Board Game Babble Show. It's gonna get wild. It's gonna get wacky. It might even get a little zany. We're gonna talk about board games and the board game industry. And, you know, we might talk about anything else we want to talk about.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for your right honorable King, King Berkey?
Hey! It's another Berkey and Badger Board Game Babble Show. And today, in the kingdom of Babblot, we want to welcome you. I'm your Honorable King Berkey, and I am the host of this elegant podcast, of course, where everyone is a board game enthusiast, including your humble king, right down to the lowest stable boy. Speaking of the lowest of the low, welcome my co-host and court jester, Badger the Brave.
Well, hello everybody. How are you all doing? Thanks for joining us live. Yes, hello Rick, good morning. Good morning to you. It's good evening for me. I'm missing out on pancakes which are being cooked right now. Aha. Yes. Oh, who's this crits happen? Oh, anyway. Hello Don, how you doing? Welcome to the kingdom, welcome to the royal court, where this is episode 77 of our podcast, which
77.
is live.
Wow.
Yep, it's not 70, 66.
No order 66.
No. Unfortunately, it's not 78 yet, but oh well, we'll get to that. What we're going to do in this show is we're going to have a quick recap on what's been happening here on Babblot. So Berkey and I will talk about what we've been up to since the last show. Then we're going to do a roundup of rumors in things that make the king go, We're going to interrogate our special guest, which you can see over here. I forgot to close his window down, so I'm just going to leave him there. This is Scott Morris.
Hi,
you may know him from this show called Crits Happen.
Crits Happen.
Or Crits Happen.
Don't say it 3 times fast. That's all I can say.
I'm not saying anything 3 times fast. You don't know how much I've had to drink before the show. Yeah, so we're going to be interrogating Scott because he's in our dungeon at the moment due to the fact that he has been caught impersonating Walter White. So we actually think he is Walter White.
I'm gonna lose my geek cred card. I've never watched an episode of Breaking Bad ever.
I haven't either.
Just watch Better Call Saul.
There you go.
Okay, and then we'll finish off the show with our Babble section, where we're not going to be talking about storytelling. I forgot to change that bit, but we're going to be talking about the main subject, which is about the supply chain, deliveries, and dispatching, and other stuff. Because Scott knows all about that stuff. I know.
Allegedly.
I know Zip, so I'm going to be sat listening.
Him smart.
Intently. Ooh, he's got a Batman sign on his back.
I do. It lights up too.
Oh. Anyway, there we have it. What's been happening in Babblot? Berkey, what have you been up to, my well-groomed, bearded king?
Well,
Sire.
it's been a lot of stuff going on, of course, with we're being in the middle of fulfillment at Game Toppers, so been very busy continuing to get through some of those segments. It's been a real challenge with the COVID situation, of course, like we've talked about, but it's springtime in Minnesota!
Yay! It means that snow's melted.
Snow has melted. It's this morning it was 28 degrees, though, surprisingly.
Ah.
And so we had a little cold spell here. It's going to start getting up into the 50s towards the end of the week, 65, and next week in the 70s. So we're finally going to have May, and that means the yard needs a lot of attention. So I've been spending a lot of my non-working hours outside, fiddle farting around out there and cleaning my shops and working outside and making my back stiff.
Yeah, until the blizzard comes next week. Yes. Rick.
Don't bring that on the show. Yeah, but that's basically all we've been up to. So we've been working with a couple things with Game Toppers recently that when we ended up having to find another supplier for some of our mold injection products, and we got all of our prototypes in, and these things are the super coolest little dice tower, dice accessory trays. And so I've been spending a lot of time doing a lot of things around those accessory components, but it's really been a lot of fun. So we'll be showing a lot of people, showing a lot of that product off shortly, and that's been kind of cool.
Wow. That sounds good. I can't wait to see it.
Welcome, Kabuki Kid. Good to see you here again. Well, kind of see you.
He says it's supposed to hit 80 degrees in New Jersey later this week.
Wow.
That's hot for Jersey.
So what have you been up to there, Sir Barry?
I am swamped. Yeah, the COVID thing is as finished here now, kind of. We've had the lockdown for like 6 weeks, and yesterday was the first day of freedom. We could go and see my wife's parents and see how they were, and we actually hang out and had a drink and stuff, which was really nice. But we are still in a dangerous zone, and we still have the kids not going to school, which means that my time is restricted to very much that. And I have bucket loads of work to do. I'm working on a new soundtrack for Dungeons and Dragons. I am still constantly working on the Titan soundtrack for Holy Grail Games. I've just had a message from Bruno at Serious Pulp about the new 7th Citadel soundtrack, which I'm going to be working on later, so cool. That's going well. And what else? There's another one. And then probably next month I'll be starting on the Joan of Arc Time of Legends sound effects and music for their app, which goes with their game from Lucky Duck Games.
Oh, and, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm just putting the final pieces to another Dungeons & Dragons adventure called Descent into Avernus. I don't know if you're a Dungeons & Dragons. You have that kind of Dungeons & Dragons air about you, Scott.
That's only because I'm in my basement, actually, at the current moment. So,
okay.
I'd never played Dungeons & Dragons until I was 23 years old. I grew up playing games, but for some reason never played Dungeons & Dragons. I played other role-playing games, a lot of them, but just for some reason never got into Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah. I was about the same. I was about 23, 24 when I first started D&D-ing, and I haven't played since. Pete's in the castle, Mr. Shark himself.
That's
How you doing, mate? Hugs to you back, mate.
Donna.
He owes us $2 for having Tom Brady's thing up there.
Yeah, a bit of a publicity. So that's what we've been doing. As I said, I'm busy doing music and sound and not a lot of board game reviewing, which is. I don't think you're doing any board game reviewing anymore, are you, Scott?
No, it's funny, I still, I started Crits Happen in like 2011 or 2012, and it was great. It was like 2 or 3 years of doing really good, but it's been a long time. It's been like almost 5-6 years since I've actually sat down and reviewed a game. Mostly just because of my position and what I do. I don't want it to be seen as I'm favoring one thing over another thing or anything like that. But yeah, it's funny. I still, to this day, have people reach out to me going, I have a Kickstarter starting and I'd love to get this game to you and you could do a preview for it. And I'm like, you know nothing about my channel anymore. So, it's pretty funny. It's pretty comical. Somewhere in the world, I'm on some reviewer list that somebody has that is sharing amongst Kickstarter backers and project managers and stuff. So I think that's how it happens.
Well, I'm super excited about having Scott Morris on the show today because Scott and I go back a little bit, and I remember the first time I met Scott when he was working for Arcane Wonders, and it was back in the days when Sheriff of Nottingham was just getting released.
Yeah.
And
those are good times.
I remember just having that idea of my family dressing up in costume because my daughters make costumes, and us always just jumping into role playing. And I remember talking to John Guyton at Gen Con and kind of pitching the idea and him putting me in contact with you.
Yep.
And you saying, I think we'd like to be a part of this.
Yeah, I said that in the reply to you. When I first got your message, I was like, is this for real? It was so out of left field. And it was even funnier because that happened in parallel with a whole nother Sheriff of Nottingham story, which I get an email from you explaining, hey, I'd like to be the sheriff and, come to Board Game Geek Con and be the sheriff and walk around and just drum up attention to it. And I was like, this is great. I remember showing your picture to Brian, the owner of Arcane Wonders, going this guy looks like he just kind of leaped off the pages. This is amazing, right? And it was funny because both of us were like, is this legit? He really does this? And we were like, I guess so, right? And at the same exact time, I had gotten an email from who is now a really good friend of mine, Tim Pollard, who his actual job, his real daytime job, he is the official Robin Hood for the city of Nottingham. And he reached out to me with something similar about how him and the actual sheriff of Nottingham wanted to do something together and promote the game and everything. And it was just we were pinching ourselves. We were like, is this real? We got people wanting to dress up like this, and we got cosplaying, and we got people wanting to actually get involved from a governmental standpoint. It was amazing. So, but those were good times. I'll tell you, I still remember that BGG Con when you were there. In fact, it's off camera right now, but I still have the badge, the big giant wooden badge with the chain that you had made me and everything. Wow. And I remember how many people came up to me saying, I love this game, but that guy makes it 10 times better. They were like, he is so exciting. He's so passionate. He's so funny. And I'm like, oh, that's great. So yeah, that was some good times.
Yeah, that was good times. Thank you. Yeah, we our whole family so enjoyed doing that episode. That show still gets some play. On our YouTube channel. It's had almost 6,500 views.
Yeah, it's a great game too. I mean, it's the game is just so phenomenal. I mean, I'm several years past working with Arcane Wonders, but that game is still, most people that I know that play games own a copy of that game, or at least have played it in some form or fashion.
Well, Arcane Wonders just came out with the new, they've been the sponsor of the Berkey and Badger show here now for many years, and just always so grateful for the relationship with Arcane Wonders. And you were the start of that in my first introduction. And at that time, I didn't know Brian Pope or anything. And when that game really hit, it was such just a fantastic family, interactive, fun. So many people could enjoy that game. And it still holds up, I think.
I think so too. I think it's one of the best games. If you look back at the last 10 years of gaming, when things really started to kind of kick in around that 2008, 2009 period, and you look ahead 10 years, it's probably, in my opinion, I would probably put it in probably the top 10, if not, top 10, top 20 area of the last 10 years, because it's so approachable. It's so easy to teach. Brian did a phenomenal job developing the game to what it was originally when we saw it to what it was when it finally came out. And it was I think things like that, when they're pure and when they're really, really good and approachable, they become something that just kind of takes off on their own, which is great.
I had Robert Geislinger now as the new sales manager, from formerly of Quartermaster Logistics and Dice Tower fame. And he's been doing a really good job. But with the Foundations of Rome Kickstarter just went fantastic. The new design by Emerson Matsuuchi, that people, you can still late pledge for that, by the way.
That game looks fabulous.
You saw I think I sent you a picture of the Foundations of Rome Game Topper Roman mat.
Yeah.
Is that thing friggin' awesome?
It's amazing looking. Yeah, it's really, really good looking. So
that's still from the artist Jaroslav Radecki, who did our Viking mat and our Scythe-inspired mat and so forth. But
nice.
Anyway, Robert made the comment. He said, we need to bring back board game theater, and we need to get you in a toga.
I'll approve the board game theater. I don't know about the toga yet or not.
I thought maybe I could pull off a senator or Caesar or something.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Just make sure it's long. It's like,
It's not an Animal House version, right?
no.
So maybe while on the subject, we will say thank you to Arcane Wonders being our sponsor and show you a little bit of what Foundation of Rome looks like. The city building board game Foundations of Rome puts you in the role of an architect, competing to own land and build magnificent structures. Build doomises, fountains, foundries, and more to increase your renown, gain glory for yourself and the Empire. With 96 wonderfully detailed miniatures in the base game, Foundations of Rome is a testament to the glory of Rome that you can bring to the table.
Yeah, check that out at arcanewonders.com. You can go to Kickstarter, Foundations of Rome. Check it out. You can still late pledge, and there's going to be a very limited edition, Kickstarter-only type of product. It's actually my favorite game of last year. As many of you know, I don't get to play the amount of games that I used to play, but this was one that my family loved. I played it close to 6 different times, played it with different player counts, and I just absolutely love it. And that's sponsorship aside. I just loved Emerson's such a great guy, but this design is cool. And yeah, you can actually see it right now on Tabletopia also.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, they just put a full implementation. They actually have the game on top of our Roman theme mat, which is kind of cool. So
Nice.
Yeah, so go ahead and check that on out. And I think we'll move right on to our news segment.
Things that make us go, Board game news. Berkey and Badger reflect on the current events that are happening in the board game industry. Some may be good, some may be bad, but there are all things that make us go,
Well, the thing that has been making me go, of course, we have a lot of information about COVID. Things are still fluid and still evolving all across the world. But one thing that I noticed was the UK Games Expo was scheduled for the end of May, and they postponed it until August. Just recently, just about a week ago, the UK Games Expo put out a public announcement that they are officially canceling it for this year. I've been particularly interested and very close to this decision because I've had a lot of interactions with Richard Denning and Tony because Game Toppers, we formed a 3-year sponsorship where we procured 325 game mats for their open board game play area. And so we were going to be sponsoring the show for 3 years. So we had already produced the mats and everything for this commitment. And then we find out it's postponed, which we were glad to hear. But then when we found out that they needed to cancel because it really takes, to put on a convention, it takes 2.5 months minimum, they said, to organize the show. And with all the uncertainty, they knew that probably could not happen. So while they're going to do their best to relaunch for 2021, the thing that made me go, was regarding the timelines. August, we have Gen Con at the beginning of August. UK Games Expo was going to be at the end of August. Of course, the United Kingdom is a different country and different situations. But I've been hearing a lot of information coming out of Germany. And in regards to Essen, and in Germany, Berlin has canceled a lot of major events, which they feel is going to, I'm hearing some rumblings that it may spill over into Essen. And then we don't know about Gen Con. It sounds like Gen Con, everything is kind of still on. Origins, of course, was canceled from Father's Day weekend, June, which I was kind of happy about. I've missed Father's Day for a while. But that's being postponed into October, which seems more realistic. But we were, just before the show started, we started talking a little bit about all this, and we get Scott's input on this and Barry's input internationally. But the thing that's making me go, is I'm wondering how many of these shows are actually going to be able to happen. And just given the timing of all this and how the community is going to be able to maintain itself, because these conventions are major, it's for them to cancel one of these conventions, there's a huge financial impact, and some of them may not be able to recover. Your thoughts on that, Scott?
So I think a lot of things about it, actually. I think for the most part, I think it's safe to say across the board, everybody has been erring on the side of safety, which is the most important. We're not, going to medical conventions trying to like cure cancer. We're like going to board game conventions, so it's not quite as essential or as important as other things, right? So I think that's been good. I think your point about the timing is spot on, because when you look at kind of the track of the year, just in the United States, and you don't even include like an Essen or a UK Games Expo, you run into situations where, okay, if Origins isn't held in June and it's held in September or October, that then butts up against Essen and forces a lot of decisions to be made, right? It's already challenging of an environment right now for everyone, whether you're a publisher, whether you're an accessory maker like Game Toppers, whether you're a musician and a creator like Barry. I mean, there's so many things that we're all having to kind of juggle and deal with, but making that kind of decision where it's like, well, do I actually pay to go to Essen now, or do I go to Origins, or do I go to Origins if I'm in Europe and then come back and go to Essen and be jet lagged and tired and exhausted? It's pretty crazy. We've been joking for a while. There's a link on BGG that shows all of the conventions, whether they're 500 people or 5,000 people. And there are more conventions for board games than there are days in the year. I mean, it's literally every day there could be a board game convention. And there's a lot of small ones, right? There's 200, 300 person conventions that are local, things like that. But yeah, when you get into the big ones and you start, moving things around, I mean, it's not even just, when you think about the logistics of it, it's not even just the deals of we're the coordinators and we're trying to coordinate with all the presenters and the show people and the exhibitors and everything like that. You have the cities that host them. Right? I mean, if you've ever been to Gen Con, that city just becomes packed every which way from Sunday. And to just go to the hotels and say, hey, we're going to shift this from August to October or whenever, that doesn't just happen very easily. So it's an unenviable task right now, being one of the people that can, coordinate these shows. And I think they're doing a great job. I think they're trying to do the best for what their businesses are and what they need to do and what their partners want and what they need to do. But yeah, I think right now erring on the side of safety is much better.
Yeah, I could only imagine what's going to happen at, talking about Gen Con, in the way especially the local close proximity restaurants are. You think of the Ram and St. Elmo's and Harry and Izzy's and Steak and Shake, all these places that everybody just cram packed. I mean, these people are cram packed in these food establishments, and now with social distancing, it almost makes it physically impossible, given the amount of crowds, to avoid any of that. And how, like you say, how does the city handle capacity?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, right? I mean, I remember the Gen Cons that have had a secondary convention happening at the same time. There's been a couple of years where there's been a very big motorcycle convention happening at the same time. Yeah. And I think if I remember right, the person I had talked to told me it was like a 20 or 30,000 person convention. So you figure 60 to 70,000 people for Gen Con. And then you have to tack onto that, right? Like they always cap their ticket sales at somewhere around 60 or 70,000, but there's a lot more people that go just because of the kind of mass centricity of everything, and they want to be around board gamers. I would bet that on any given Gen Con, there's probably 75 to maybe 80,000 people that are there. And then you throw in another 10 or 20,000 people, and then you change the hotel around, and then you go, oh, by the way, we need to shift. Like that's a lot of flaming chainsaws to juggle for sure.
Luckily, we don't own flaming chainsaws here.
Yeah, Pete Shirley chimes in. He says, even if Gen Con tried to postpone where it could push to. With the other pushing back of other shows, there will be no time left at the end of the year. Now, since they waited so long, they will all butt heads with something, and Christmas is looming. And it's going to be an insane time, and that's a good point.
Well, and then you also have PAX Unplugged, too, which is, at the beginning of December. My hope, when I look at it, I personally think this year is shot. I don't think there's going to be any major board game conventions between now and the end of the year. That's not saying I know anything that anyone else doesn't know. That's just my gut feeling as to what's happening. Everything I know is everything everybody else knows publicly as to who's postponed and who's canceled. I think probably Gamma March of next year is when we'll probably start to shift back to. I hate to say shift back to normal because I'm a really firm believer that there really is no going back to normal after this. I think we're just going to have to find our new normal. Like you said, right? With all the social distancing stuff, how do you put 70,000 people in a convention and ask them to stay 4, 6, 10 feet apart from each other, right? I mean, that's when the whole goal is to sit down and play a game together. That's not very easy.
Exactly, and it's tactile, and because of the camaraderie amongst so many of the people, conventions are like summer camp to us. Getting together with all of our friends, and like Pete, he was at Gamma, and his wife is a caregiver, and so he had to be very careful about and this was right at the very beginning before we even knew much. But when I see Pete, man, I just want to go give that guy a great big hug. I love him so much, and and it's like the things that were normal for us and natural for me. I'm a natural hugger anyway, and
me too.
My hand is out there, and I want to embrace people, and this has made people uncomfortable.
I'm French now. I'm a natural kisser, so I feel worse for wear. I feel strange now. Not being able to kiss people. It's
everybody's doing the chicken wing now. No.
I'm suddenly glad I'm in the dungeon. So,
so what's your perspective over in Europe, Barry? What are you hearing from folks about conventions and Essen and so forth?
I'm not hearing a lot. I mean, I just put a map up because Scott was saying something interesting earlier about there are more conventions than there are days in the year. And in France alone, we've got 284 recorded festivals and conventions that happen.
Wow.
Although a couple of them are outside, like Essen Spiel here. As you can see, it's not cancelled still. It's still penciled in for the 22nd to the 25th. Mm-hmm. But a lot of festivals have been cancelled here, which is a good thing. I mean, in my opinion, it's better that they're cancelled and that we get rid of this virus as quick as possible and we can get back to playing with our friends instead of moaning about not being able to go to a convention because it's been cancelled because people are scared. I'm looking forward to, hopefully this weekend will be the first time I get to play with my friends who live a little bit away from me. So that will be nice. But as I said, conventions I can take or leave. I mean, it's work for me. It's a paid, it's money in my pocket for working. But at the end of the day, the safety of everybody else is more important.
Well, and I think the longevity of the industry as a whole, right? I think it would be much better to err on the side of plan heavily for next year rather than try and shoehorn something for this year.
Oh, definitely.
I think one of the things that is making it difficult is we can make we can have our opinions about this stuff, but when you have a different perspective from a convention, like for Origins, we were talking a little bit, here Origins and Gamma has just kind of come out of the debt cycle and into a little bit of profitability, and not holding this convention for them, making that decision, they may have to lose their staff. They may not even be able to do another one.
But our board game company's losing out, though. That's the thing. Our board game company's losing out because of it.
Yes, for sure. I mean, if you look at the average supply chain from a publisher, if they sell directly to a consumer, they're making the absolute highest amount of margin that they can make on their game. Even if they're discounting it, if they do something at the show like, a $5 coupon or something like that, they're going to make the highest margin they can make. And while they won't sell anywhere near as many units as they would at an Essen or a Gen Con as they would through distribution and through retail, that is still a very hefty chunk. I mean, when you figure that the margin can be sometimes 4x, 5x, 6x, I've heard as much as 8x by selling direct for consumers, that, you know, selling 1 unit versus selling 8, that's a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're definitely getting hit.
It doesn't seem like it's affected Kickstarter. Kickstarter seems to be going strong, and I'm always seeing that people are
maybe
backing this, backing that.
For a few.
I think what we're seeing across the industry, both in Kickstarter and outside of Kickstarter, is the bigger getting bigger and the smaller getting smaller.
Okay.
And I think that when you I mean, obviously just ended a couple of weeks ago, you look at Frosthaven, right? I mean, that thing just absolutely exploded. I think everybody I know and people I don't know bought that game. It was something like north of 12 million, I think, which was amazing. But
yeah, and think about the late pledge manager after they do that. That thing's
Right.
going to bring in 15 million.
Easily 15 million. Yeah. And I'm very happy for him. I think that's great, right?
Yeah.
But there's already such a discrepancy, especially in Kickstarter, between the big guys that do it really well and the young guys that are just trying to start off and everything. There's a huge discrepancy there. And I think that gap, kind of almost like we talk about in the US about the 1% and the 99%, that's kind of what we're seeing happen because of this. And I think that's happening in retail. I think it's happening with publishers. I think it's happening pretty much all across the industry.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. I feel for a lot of these conventions that, you know, they're just starting to build almost. You know, it's just like they're starting to be viable, and then this cuts it all out from underneath them. I know the UK Games Expo, because of the NEC contracts and different things there, they were talking about losing $250,000.
Man, yeah, there's a lot of money behind these shows. We think of them as just like $50 games, but just the cost to go. I mean, just some of the cheapest shows as a publisher, I've seen people spend $10,000, $15,000 just to go to the show, let alone not even do, you know, a massive amount of marketing or anything like that. So you multiply
easy.
that by, 400, 500, exhibitors and all the marketing spend they do. Yeah, there's a lot of money associated with it.
But, ultimately we all have to take care of one another, and that's what most matters.
For sure. Yeah, if we don't, we're not going to be playing games, right?
Well, that's the things that make us go, We're going to move right on to our next segment with our special guest, Tox, Scott Morris from Crits Happen, and works for GTS Distribution. And we're going to start with what game is behind the door?
Welcome everybody to What Game is Behind the Door. In this segment, will we put in our special guest to the test by asking them 3 questions. Questions like, what was the last game that they purchased? What is the game they're most excited about getting? And what is their favorite game right now? Berkey and Badger will have to figure out what these answers are by asking questions in particular styles. Let's find out if Berkey and Badger can get 3 out of 3 or fall flat on the floor like a floundering thingy.
The game behind the door is Kevin's disappeared.
Yeah, wow.
I needed to get my marker, I gotta write this stuff down.
Look, if you didn't come to class prepared.
Well, that's a given.
Wait a minute.
This whole thing is a fly by the seat of our pants gig here.
Wait, you have pants on? No, okay.
Used to. I remember
I
having
thought
pants
you were wearing
on.
shorts. That's what I thought.
Remember the day when we all wore underwear?
I've got a mask on, but you can't see it.
I still remember Jamie Stegmaier when he made his blog post about it was entitled "I will no longer wear pants to work." I was like, that was hilarious. So.
Kind of true nowadays, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. That's going to be the dangerous thing when all this changes and we all go back to whatever the new normal is. There's going to be all these spikes in sales of things nobody realized they needed. Like, I've been working from home for the last 2 months and I've gained 10 pounds and I need new pants. So it's going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, and you're going to be constantly spraying all your pieces on your board games.
That's right.
Disinfect. We need to leave that for 12 hours.
Yeah, Army Painter's actually going to come out with a little dip that you just put them in and it'll disinfect. No, I'm kidding.
Deep fat fryer. I've seen that. They've got deep fat fryers for the opticians. They put the glasses on after you've tested them in a deep fat fryer. Anyway. I'm hungry now. I'm thinking of those pancakes. Yes, we are now in the deepest, darkest dungeons. I should do a dungeon voice. But anyway, and Scott is here, and he needs to plead with us to let him free for his sins as Walter White-isms. So we're going to ask him 3 questions and find out a bit more about him. If we manage to fail at getting the answers from him, he can go scot-free.
That's witty. Never heard that one before.
Anyway, I'm beside myself. Sorry, I'm a bit chatty because, being locked up for 6 weeks with no one to talk to. But anyway, the first question we're going to ask is, what is the last game that Scott has purchased? And we're going to do this in a kind of 20 questions kind of manner. You guys watching live on the stream can join in as well. And what we're going to do is Berkey and I will ask a question each, to which Scott will reply yes or no, and then he will show us a piece from this game, and we will describe that to you audio podcast listeners. And we got to do this in about 5 rounds and try and guess what this game is.
I'm really hoping I have you guys stumped on this one.
So.
Oh, you think you have us, do you?
If I need to do any kind of voices or accents, just let me know and I can jump in.
Yes, of course.
Oh, goody gumdrops. I can do with some interesting voices. For
you must give all of your clues in your best Old English accent.
Old English. Very good, Lord.
Yes, I'm auditioning for Transylvanians as well. So.
I don't do that one.
No.
I want to bite your neck.
Yes.
Say it again.
There you go.
I want to bite your neck. Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
That's my favorite vampire.
I love to count.
All right, fire away, gentlemen. What are your questions?
Right. We're distracted.
So my first question, be my standard question, is it in a Ticket to Ride size box?
Very, very close. I think it's a little thinner.
Okay. Great.
Not by much. The average consumer would probably say, yeah, they look about the same.
Okay. I just need to confirm something because I saw you punching out the game because you've just bought it. Is this game a recent release within the past 2 years?
I believe that is correct. Yes. Sorry, I believe that's correct, Melo. Yes.
Lovely.
Oh, you're not the king. I don't have to call you that.
Yeah, I'm the jester. I just like it.
All right.
So
now you want me to hold
show
up
us a component.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I told Barry earlier, I'm going to give you guys some sets of components because I think just showing one of these components is not going to be very fair enough on its own. So I'm going to show you the scoring markers.
Scoring markers. They look like little leaves, I would think. I would say.
They kind of look, kind of like chevrons. Like if you look at just one of them, it's a square with the top right and the lower left corner kind of cut off. So it kind of has that kind of indentation to it, which is unique. And it's definitely a design I have not seen in other games for scoring markers.
Yeah, and then pastel colors.
Yes, they're not the traditional hard yellow, blue, green, and they have purple, which is awesome. So
purple, the royal color.
That's right.
Yes, okay. Well, I don't have a guess on this one.
Okay.
No, I don't have a guess either. So we shall pass on to question number 2.
Is this a Euro style game?
Yes.
Okay. And my question...
At least I think. I haven't played it yet. So I'm looking forward to playing it this weekend. But yes, I believe it's resource management type stuff.
Okay. Oh, he's just giving me a question there. Is it a resource management type of game? No.
Oh, well, yeah.
So he's giving us an extra clue. Resource management. Okay. Is
Technically,
this
every game is a resource management game.
okay, is this game from a European designer?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Wow. See, he's privy to all the stuff all over the world.
I am, yeah. I have forgotten more about board games than most people know. So.
All right. That's next component, I guess.
Next
Second
component. All right. I am going to show you one of the special tiles from the game.
Can you little closer?
Yes. So one side of it has a diving helmet and a little no symbol, and then the other side of it has what I know what it is, but you could interpret it as whatever item you want it to be. Kind of similar to the scoring tokens, just kind of a rectangle with the lower right-hand corner there kind of chopped off.
All right, I'm going to make a guess. And I'm going to guess underwater cities.
That is a great game and a phenomenal fun time around the table, but I'm very sorry, my lord, you're wrong.
It's not that rot.
Oh.
How about you, Sir Barry?
I would be quite. That's the one I was thinking of that Don has just mentioned. Otis.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Otis?
You are correct, and Don is correct.
Oh, well done, Don.
Yeah, wow. That was pretty good.
I could see the box in my head, but I couldn't think of the title, and I was just going to search on BGG. But Don, yours. Thank you, Don.
When this game came out at Gen Con, I knew nothing about it, and I saw it on a table, and I was like, that game looks so cool. Like, it's like this underwater diving thing. It's like different. I need to play that game. And Gen Con happened and just couldn't get to it and had to deal with everything that was going on. And I missed it. And I, as is with this industry, there's 100 new games every week. So it was hard to keep up. And about a week ago, Asmodee had a sale on their website, and I was like, "Hey, I don't own that. I need it. I'm getting it. I want to play it." So yeah, it's only taken me 2 years to get it to the table, but it'll get to the table.
Is that why you moved house? Because you want to own all the games?
You don't want to know how many games I have. my movers, a good friend of mine owns the moving company that we used. It's called Dr. Move. And I've known this guy for almost 30 years, and he called me, and I told him, I said, I have a lot of games, and he's like, yeah, no, I know, that's what you do, and I'm like, yeah. And then the day of, when they were packing everything up to move it up here, he's like, so your games take up almost all of a 28-foot truck. And I was like, oh, fun, good times. So
wow.
Yeah, but that was the first room we unpacked. The game room, which is off to my left, is unpacked and ready to go. We've actually played some games already in the new house, so it's been good.
You got the topper out?
I have the topper out. Yep, I have the grass mat, the green mat that looks all beautiful and sharp and shiny. So yeah, no, that's really. In fact, my brother-in-law made a comment about it, and he's like, "This thing is pretty damn sturdy." I'm like, "Yes, it is." So
cool.
So 1 out of 3. Question number 2 is, what is the game that Scott is most excited about getting? And in this round, he's going to be doing a doodle for us. And again, we'll describe this to you, audio listeners. And we'll try and divine what is tempting Mr. I Want It All to get this game in particular.
I think this may actually throw everybody now that I think about it. I'm not an artist at all. I have a degree in architecture and I know how to draw, but I am not an artist when it comes to creativity and beauty and all that stuff.
Okay,
I'm hard lines and square corners kind of person. So I'm actually gonna fold. I did a drawing ahead of time. I'm gonna fold it because I did 2 little doodles that I did.
He's lying, guys. By the way, he's lying. He's like this graphic guru, with Photoshop and all of his creativity. He's lying.
Photoshop I'm good at. Anything Adobe I'm good at, but in terms of creating it on my own, no way. I'm a stick figure guy. So can we see the game room? We would love a quick tour. I can't do that with the camera that I am on, Pete, but I will make a video and post it on Facebook on Crits Happen if you want. So I'll do that. So, okay, here is the first doodle that I did. And I'll let
Scarab.
you. It looks like a scarab. Yes.
It's an awesome scarab, and it has it's a beetle scarab.
Yep, not Paul McCartney, but it's a beetle.
He's got little feathery pinchers.
Yeah, kind of like, looks like victory points to me a little bit there, but yeah. And then
it's definitely a stick person beetle.
It is, yes. And then the other side, which I don't know if it'll come through or not. You'll have to see if you get it or not. The other side here is what looks like a pyramid with some kind of hollowed out rooms in front of it and to the side of it.
Yep, and on the top, it's got a little bit of a triangle there.
Yep, kind of like Luxor, but it's not Lords of Vegas or anything.
Yeah.
And my first thought was of the game Scarabea, the Bruno Catala game, which I played.
Ah,
really good. But now you've put the pyramid in.
Well, I'm thinking he's thinking Kemet.
I'm thinking that because. Yeah, I've just been talking about doing a Kemet soundtrack as well.
Why would I be excited about Kemet?
Because it's coming to Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Blood and Sand.
This one has already been done on Kickstarter and is complete. It hasn't fulfilled yet, but it is complete.
It hasn't fulfilled.
Another clue. That must be not Cleopatra.
Oh, City of Architects?
No, but that's a very good guess. Amun-Ra from Kabuki Kid is a very good guess. Mm-hmm. The new Igiza is also a very good guess, but those are all wrong.
Oh, I know. It's Ankh.
No, that's where I thought I'd throw you. I was so excited about Ankh because A, I love Eric Lang, and B, I love Cool Mini or Not. And
you're supposed to say you love Pete as well.
I do love Pete, yes, that's why, yes. But I can't talk about that in public. But anyway, no. Yeah, the Ankh, when I saw it at Gen Con for the first time, I was like, oh my God, I have to own this. I mean, I love
fantastic.
Blood Rage. I love everything they've done in that universe with, the Rising Sun and Blood Rage and now this. And I'm a sucker for Egyptian themed games. I love that culture and that kind of ambiance and everything. But that's when I was drawing it. I was like, oh man, they're gonna think it's Ankh, but no, it is not Ankh.
Gosh, with a scarab.
And it's from a very big company, that does both board games and video games. They really nice people too. Really nice people there. It's a very heavily miniature themed, very heavily kind of campaign themed kind of game, and the rooms there may be a little bit of a clue in kind of how they're hollowed out and look like boxes almost, and like ice cool boxes connected together.
This was done on Kickstarter, you said?
Yeah.
This was done on
Just
Kickstarter.
not filled.
Excuse me.
Recently as well. It was like a couple of months ago.
It was not that long ago. That's right. It was a couple of months ago. I think it finished towards the end of last year.
Boy, I don't think I know.
Give up?
And
Anybody else? I'm gonna give up.
Let me check the chat, see if anyone's made any. Cleopatra? No, that's a great guess, Don. I really like the look of Cleopatra, too. I think they did a great job with it. No, this game, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, because I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I believe it's pronounced Arceus. Arkeis. It is from Ankama, and it is absolutely gorgeous looking. It has literally like hundreds of miniatures that are all Egyptian themed, and you have this really unique style of campaign building where you're adventurers. And I know this is going to sound silly and stupid to say this in 2020. I love the fact that there is like diversity in the adventurers. There's women, there's people of color, there's like so much stuff that's involved in the game, which is awesome. But there's a lot of like building out your character, and then there is kind of an element of ice cool in it, not in the sense of like you're flicking pieces around the board, but the board is made up of these like hollowed out boxes, and you can either be in these rooms searching for things or fighting monsters, or outside of the rooms and in the desert, which is just kind of a flat area and stuff like that. And it's just very story driven, very, very heavy narrative driven and everything. And it looks absolutely fabulous. So it is in my top list of games that I absolutely cannot wait to get, because I went all in on it for 140 euros, it says. So,
Wow.
That's it right there. And if you look at that picture on the front of the box there, the scarab on his head was the scarab that I drew. So that was it.
I
right
remember
there.
seeing it. I didn't back it and that, but I remember it now.
I like Ankama a lot. They make really, really fun games, and they make games that are kind of somewhat under the radar, which is a little funny because they're such a big company and they do so much on video game side and everything. I think, obviously a lot of people may know them and remember them from when they started with Crossmaster, and they got involved with Crossmaster. But they make games that I think are both very approachable, but also very complex and challenging, right? In a good way. I don't mean complex as in hard, just good decisions and good things to play with. Yeah, you can see some of the miniatures there. They look great. So,
wow.
And, really, really good pedigree behind it in terms of, names and designers and stuff like that. So it's on top of my list. And you can play it solo. So if you're home alone and you have no one to play with because of the quarantine, you can play it on your own.
Yeah, so it's Antoine Balzer, Corentin Lebrat, Ludovic Montblanc, and Theo Rivière.
The four horsemen of French gaming.
Are they? I know two of them.
I've met all of them. Antoine is a very good friend, and I've had the opportunity to meet all of them, and they're good people. They're great people.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're on to part 3.
So do I get out of the dungeon for stumping you?
On that one, you've got one score. We got a score with an assist.
Got it.
So there's an asterisk because Barry looked at the chat and he wasn't supposed to.
But it's hard for me to avoid it. It's
every first game is.
How are we going to torture people if you do that?
I will sing. I want to break free.
There you go.
Anyway, I want to break free. Question number 3 is:
if I had cats, no.
My glass just broke.
Question number 3 is: what is Scott's current favorite game? The game that he is constantly playing at this moment, the game that he is dreaming about even while he's working, the game that he's phoning up the company and saying, "Can you send me some extra bonus goodies?" About. And we're going to be doing this from 5 one-worded clues that Scott's going to give us, and he's got a perfect opportunity to stump us. And I need to hide the chat.
Maybe, yeah. We'll have to see if I can stump you on this one. I think if anyone knows me, they may know where this is going. So I really struggled with the words for this one. Like, I was trying to think of things. For the record, no, I don't ask the publisher for anything free because they're great people and I want to support them. And I'm a big believer in supporting your friends financially when they make endeavors like the games and stuff like that. Yeah. So the first word, you're going to laugh at this. The first word is darts.
Darts.
Okay. And
these are like those lawn darts that you used to throw in the ground and they would stick in the ground and...
Well, you were supposed to throw those in the ground? I was throwing them at people. Wait a minute.
Well, if you throw them high enough, they fall nicely on people.
No, like that. Not like that. They might be dangerous, but not like that. So.
Oh, man.
I don't recall a dart board game.
Darts.
Yeah, so you got to drink beer, a lot of beer, and throw little kind of javelins at a round circle.
You could. I mean, beer, mead, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next one, I actually have to give you a 2-word clue because it's not really fair to give you a 1-word clue breaking either of these up because the original clue is going to be dice, but that doesn't do anything and there's no clue. So I am going to say unique dice.
Distinguished dice.
Distinguished dice.
Oh, okay. I don't remember seeing in Dice Quest any.
I'll say Champions of Midgard.
Ah, that's a very interesting guess. I don't know where the darts would come from.
I'm thinking arrows.
That is one of my top 10 games, I think, personally. I love that game so much. But no, that's not this one.
I love that game too. I've got the
You got the playmat right
back
there.
here
Yeah.
for with all the expansions.
Yeah.
And then Reavers off. Obviously, I love that too.
I enjoyed Reavers. I like Champions better, I think. It hits on all the cylinders for me.
With the Valhalla expansion and the Mountains expansion.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, and it's a game that's great on its own, and when you add the expansions, it just gets better, which is very, very rare. So that was really good.
Yeah,
But no,
agreed.
that's not this one. So darts and unique dice do not take you to Valhalla.
Okay, Barry, you got an idea?
No, I'm trying to think of games with like Aborigines or you know, because the darts in a blowpipe. You know, I'm thinking that kind of dart.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
It's fair. Hey, no one's judging. It's all good.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the proper name. I don't know why I thought of Aboriginals, because they have didgeridoos and they're like bigger things. Like imagine trying to blow on that to throw a dart out.
There you go.
Cruise
There you
missile at the other end.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. Okay, the next one, and this may give it away. The next one, waterproof.
Waterproof.
Waterproof board games that you can play underwater to avoid the coronavirus.
And no, it's not Otis. I thought this one would give it away for sure.
No, not when you've got those darts. Yeah.
Now I can look at the chat. You can't look at the chat. So
No, I can't look at the chat. Just 3 new comments.
Don has a really good comment. He said, "Do they have darts in Taverns of Tiefenthal?" I don't believe they do, but that's a fun game.
No, we just played that.
Yeah. Aquaman the board game. No, I wish there was an Aquaman the board game. That'd be amazing.
Darts and then waterproof.
Darts, unique dice, waterproof.
No, I'm gonna pass.
Okay,
Okay, nothing? All right. Okay, we'll go on.
I have a different idea, but I didn't think it would be waterproof. Doesn't make sense. Okay.
The next one is also a kind of a multi-word kind of thing because it'll bring some stuff to it. I didn't want to do like cards and dice and things like that, right?
We should keep him in prison just for changing our rules.
For sure. Role-playing centric.
Role-playing centric. Okay, I'm gonna have a guess. And the reason I'm thinking about this because I'm thinking about the artwork from a game, and you haven't mentioned a clue that would give it away, but I'm thinking of the artwork of this one character who has this dart thing, and I forget the name. It's a feminine character. The artwork is gorgeous, but it's from Chip Theory Games, Too Many Bones.
That is correct, sir. Too Many Bones is the right answer. That is, I've played that game more than anything on my shelf. Absolutely love it. My wife loves it. Kids love it. We have done things like massive campaigns. Like we did a 7 or 8 chapter campaign with friends of ours that lived in Dallas when I lived in Austin, and just had so much fun with it because it's just so unique and so different. And I can tell you, having played it over 50 times, it's absolutely never the same game twice. It's just unbelievable.
So how much of a learning curve is to get into this game?
There's a lot. It's what I call a commitment game because it's not a let's sit down and learn it in 30-minute type thing. There's a lot going on. As you can see there, one of the pictures that Barry posted was the dice. Every die in the game is unique, and every die face in the game is unique. So the dice are where the role-playing centric piece comes into it. The whole concept of it was we're going to make a role-playing game that doesn't use all these charts and tables and all these crazy things you got to figure out. We're just going to give all those things to the dice. So every die you roll is a different skill. You might heal somebody. And one of my favorite things in the game is Patches, the gear lock and that was the last word. The 5th word was gear lock. The Patches, the healer, will actually heal people by injecting them with like these like stims, and he'll like throw darts at people and stuff, which is really, really funny. The darts come from that, and from in the game, there's a thing called Dangerous Darts, which is kind of a little mini game that's inside of the game that sometimes your adventurers have to play. But it's just so unique because they took this fantasy setting of monsters and dungeons and dragons and all these things, and they made...
Yeah, that's the character, one you just had, that I forget her name.
That's Boomer.
What's it? Boomer,
That's
okay.
Boomer, yeah. They're,
He's a Cylon.
You might be thinking, if you're thinking of the rogue one, you might be thinking of Nugget, because she was kind of the rogue style character. But the Gearlocks, these characters, they're so unique. It's such a new race in the world of fantasy, and that really appealed to me, that there's not just a lot of great gameplay, but there's a lot of great creativity with it. And you really, even if you don't like role-playing games, you get sucked into this like puzzle nature of the game. It sounds simple. When you have combat, you're on a 4x4 grid, and there's usually like 3 or 4 bad guys and 3 or 4 of you. So you're taking up half the grid, but there are so many just tremendous decisions to make in one single round of combat, and a game can have multiple rounds of combat. It's just so much fun and so exciting that it's like you play it, you do really well, you like develop your character, you get him to a place you love, and then something goes horribly wrong and you have to like change your whole plans, and then you finish the game and you're like, man, I can't wait to do this again because I want to do this now with my character. Like I said, we've played over 50 times. My wife has never played any other character other than Pickett. That's the only character she wants to play and likes to play. She once tried Nugget, and then she was like, yep, nope, I'm going back to Pickett. And that was it. So it was pretty funny. And she's not even bored with it after 50 times.
Yeah, I have it setting up on my shelf of shame. I backed the Kickstarter and the expansion, so I got quite a bit of stuff. But when we first got it in, Josiah read the entire directions, and we had planned this time to play it. And then as he had read all the directions and he was pulling all the stuff out and getting it set up, we found out that the whole beginning set of chips were not included, and there was a duplicate set of chips for something else. And that was really frustrating, and they finally did take care of it, but I had a frustrating experience with them getting me the new chips. Well, by that time, the excitement wore off, and it's been sitting on my shelf ever since, and we haven't gotten back to putting the commitment to it,
I'll tell you a story, and this is kind of funny. So the first thing to know about Chip Theory Games, Josh and Adam Carlson are the owners. They're fabulous people, just wonderful people. I met them randomly at Gen Con, where a friend of mine, Tim Norris, said, you have to come check out this Gladiator game. There was no booth. There was no setup. It was literally 2 guys sitting at a lunch table playing this game and showing it to people because they were bootstrapping it and they couldn't get into the convention. And I loved it. I thought the game was great. The game's called Hoplomachus, and it was their first game. And if you like Gladiator games, or if you like skirmishy combat type games, it's right up your alley. And I'm a big poker player, so I liked the poker chips and everything associated with it and stuff. But when we got Too Many Bones, I was really excited about it, and I opened it up and did the same thing, ran through all the directions, and I'm like, oh man, okay, all right. And we started playing, and I'm like, I think we're doing that wrong. Hang on, let me check the rule book. Okay, I think we're doing that wrong. I started developing literally dozens of questions. And I texted Adam and I said, hey, do you guys have an FAQ or anything like that? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we're running into weird situations. Here's what's happening and this is what's going on. And he was super nice. He's like, yeah, no, I get it. He goes, here's what you want to do. Check this page. It has this rule. Check this. And I'm like, okay. And after about 4 questions, he goes, you know what? Just let me call you. And I'm like, okay. And he called me, and we spent 3.5 hours on the phone where we played the game, and he was like this overlord spectator, going, nope, don't do that. Oh, yes, do that. Yes. He was giving us all the things of this is what you should do, and this is how this works, and this is what you do. And those 3 hours playing the game and learning from him, that taught me so much about the game. And then the following convention, the next one was Board Game Geek Con right after that. And I had two different groups of people that had asked me, hey, I know you played this and I know you got a lot of information about it. Like, could you teach us? And it was funny because I think over the course of that BGG, I think we probably drove maybe 12 or 13 orders of the game. And if you backed it on Kickstarter, like, it's not a cheap game. It's like, it's a minimum $100 plus $125, $150 game.
Yeah, $150. Yeah.
It's a commitment. And most of their games are, right? But that's the thing. The thing that I really love about it is, anyone can go buy a game, anyone can go make a game and, play for an hour and have fun and all that. But the games that really kind of stick with me, personally, are the games that are these like really thick, really meaty. If I put in the effort, I'm going to get something out of it that's awesome. And both Too Many Bones and their new one, Cloudspire, are very much like that. They're not for everybody. They're not every casual gamer is going to do it, but yeah, they're really, really good stuff.
Well, the production quality is just absolutely off the hook. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's some of the best, literally some of the best. I mean, when I was talking about waterproof, all of the playing cards are waterproof. The player aid cards are all waterproof. They're like PVC covered and everything. There's play mats that are even like, they don't soak up water. Like, you could drop a play mat in the water and they don't soak up the water.
And they have the cutouts for the dice.
Yep.
And the chip, it's amazing.
It is pretty amazing. They're doing things from a manufacturing standpoint that companies that have been in business for like 20 years haven't been able to do yet. So
yeah. That's
which is
sure.
good stuff. So it's a very fun game.
Well, we have a conditional win against our prisoner.
Yes. Just tainted, my lord. Tainted.
Team Don Lyles will be credited with the win on this one.
There you go. I support Don getting the win.
Well, that was super fun. Thank you so much. We want to thank our other sponsor. This is my shameless plug, but Game Toppers also sponsors the Berkey and Badger Board Game Babble Show.
This video was made possible with the help of Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience with a Game Topper.
And we're still hard at it. We've fulfilled all of our standard toppers, the Adler, the Lestrade, the Watson, the Holmes, and all the Mycroft and Moriarty toppers have all shipped out. And just this last week, we shipped out all of the Oak Holmes and Walnut Holmes toppers. And within about a week, we'll be receiving all the Walnut premium units. And so you can go to GameToppersLLC.com and you can still late pledge for all of that. And really, probably by the end of May, everything will be close to shipped out other than our international orders, which will be in mid-June. So feel free to take a look at GameToppersLLC.com.
Boom.
You mentioned the poll, Barry. I know I skipped that actually in the front. Tell us a little bit about the poll again. We'll revisit that real quick.
Well, maybe I should talk to Scott very quickly about his house moving. How have you arranged all of your board games?
In terms of, are they vertical or horizontal, or in terms of how are they put onto the shelves?
How are they organized?
They're
because
organized.
In our last show, we talked about things to do while we're locked in, and I started cleaning up my board game collection and said, I'm gonna alphabeticalize it, or I'm going to do it by size, or I'm going to do it by publisher.
That's dangerous. That's dangerous to alphabetize it. I don't know if I could do that or not.
Yeah, so I put a poll up, and the results we got 308 different answers.
Wow.
The two most popular is I see a hole and then I fill it, which had 55.8%.
As Dr. Evil would say, that sounded dirty.
That was
goodness.
the intent. And the second largest at 37% was by the size of the box. Do you fit those categories?
I do not fit those two categories. No, not at all. In fact, I'm looking here at the answers that were given, and not even close. That's okay.
Okay.
But the answer is on here.
Yes, the answer is on here.
Chronologically, does that mean organizing by year of release, or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't do that either. No way.
Because one that I missed off was player count. which a lot of people commented on and said, "Oh,
Yep.
I organise my games by player count, and then it makes it easier, and also player count and if they're easy to get to the table,
Sure.
so they can just easily game night. They can just pick up a pile and go.
Yeah, yeah.
A great way to do it.
Player count's good, especially if you have a bigger game group. There's not a lot of games that are playing more than 6 or getting up to 8 and 10 and stuff like that, which most people nowadays aren't having to worry about. But so that's what it is.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a guess as to which way mine are organized before I tell everybody?
I think they're by player weight.
Well, I'm about 270, so
And I'm gonna go by
Weight. Game weight
Complexity,
of the
yeah.
game. Yeah.
I'm gonna go by theme.
by theme. That's good. It used to be just when I got them, it was I see a hole and I fill it in. That's the way it used to be. Then my collection got to over 1,000 games, and I was like, okay, this is getting crazy. It is organized now as best as humanly possible by publisher. Because with my role and what I do, being able to have all of Alderac Entertainment Group's games in one place and all of Yellow's games in another place and Portal's games in another place is really, really helpful for me. So,
No, that makes sense.
yeah. And I found for the most part doing that, and you mentioned about box size, for the most part, a lot of the publishers use a standard size box size for their own stuff. Like you look at Yellow and there's a lot of games that are in that kind of King of Tokyo size. Then there's also like things like the smaller ones that are Fairy Tile that are also in a standard size that they'll use. So they kind of have like a small, medium, and a large size box. And I found that holds pretty true among at least most of the
Like
publishers that have
Renegade
deep
with
catalogs.
Raiders of the North Sea, and that
Yeah.
Paladins, they've got that's a new size box, but I really
a weird
like it.
Box. I love it. It's just weird. It's like,
It is weird, and it's like Alderac, AEG did Space Base basically in the same size box, and
yeah.
I kind of like it.
I do too. Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think the first game that was in that kind of box size was probably like Machi Koro. It was like one of the first big popular ones in that size. But yeah, no, it's in fact it's funny when I first saw Raiders of the North Sea, I didn't play it because of the box size because it was so weird looking and weird feeling to me. I was like, I'll play it whenever. And I missed out on it when it started. And then about a year later, a neighbor of mine who is not a heavy board gamer, he called me and he was like, hey, do you want to come over and do a game night this weekend? We're like, yeah, sure. He goes, I'm really excited. I have a game that I know you're going to love and I think you're going to just really enjoy. And I'm hoping you haven't played it yet. And I'm like, well, what is it? He goes, it's called Raiders of the North Sea. It's this Viking thing. I'm like, oh, that's great, right? So, yeah, that's when I got to play it, and I love it. I have all of the games that go along with it, and then of course the digital app that just came out on the phone and on the Switch and stuff like that. So it's cool stuff.
Excelente. Well, we will move on to the Babble topic.
And now it's time for the Babble, 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 Berkey and Badger's board game Babble.
Hey, we thought today would be a super fun perspective to talk with an industry insider, professional, really smart guy about distribution and supply chain. That's why we named the episode Supply Chain. And we have Scott Morris here, who works at GTS Distribution and has been around the industry as in sales and marketing, in product development, as content creator, but then also working directly in this supply chain. And I think we can probably glean a lot of information. I've got a lot of different questions. Cheers to Scott.
Thank you.
But the first thing that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about GTS, about how distribution actually works, this publisher to retailer, that type of thing.
That is such a big, broad question.
Yeah.
So good. So I am what they basically call a category manager. So my responsibility at GTS, my title is Director of Business Development for Gaming, but I'm really the gaming guy. So I am, for board games, I am kind of part the gatekeeper and part the project manager and part partner manager for everything we do. GTS, a lot of consumers may not even know like who the distributors are, but There's several major players in the United States. We're one of the largest. We do both sports and entertainment and memorabilia type stuff, and then we also do board games and trading card games and supplies and things like that. So if you are a hobby retailer and you are looking to stock your store, you would contact somebody like GTS and say, hey, I want one of those and 3 of those and 2 of those and 5 of those, and put them all in a box and send them to me so I can sell them and make as much money as I can. So that's kind of what we do. Me personally, I do a little bit of partner management. So we have like exclusive partners that we work with. We have Plan B Games and all of their sister companies and their imprint studios. We have Board and Dice from Poland. We've got Cydia Games from the UK, and just a lot of very great partnerships that we're able to focus on 100%. And they're dedicated and only distributing with us. And then we have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of publishers that we work with that are either U.S.-based or international-based, where we distribute on a non-exclusive basis. And what I mean by that is there are other distributors that they will sell their product to, and then they'll sell their product to us, and then we're all kind of, ipso facto competing a little bit for the retailers' dollars on things like that. So this is the not sexy part of the business, by all means. There's a lot of cardboard, there's a lot of boxes, there's a lot of pallets, there's a lot of manufacturing, there's like all these things. And in fact, I always tell this story. 2 Origins ago, I get my Uber, little old lady, super nice lady. She was like maybe 68, 69 years old. And she goes, what are you in town for? I said, I'm here for a board game convention. She goes, board games? Wow. Like Monopoly. I'm like, yes, like Monopoly, but not like Monopoly, but whatever. And she's like, She goes, so you deal on, like, do you make them? And I'm like, no, I distribute them. And she's like, oh, And she pauses and she goes, so you probably deal with a lot of like Chinese manufacturers and shipping containers and deadlines. And I'm like, oh my God, I love you. You're speaking my language. It was amazing. Come to find out, her husband owned a greeting card distributor, and that's how she knew about some of that stuff, which was kind of funny. But yeah, there's, especially now with COVID, there already were a lot of challenges, but now there's like even more challenges because, as I always say, everything is on time in the board game industry. It's just a matter of what time it is. There's so many delays that can happen already, right? I mean, you guys know a lot of it, where art gets delayed or design, and you find something in development and you got to switch something and change something and things like that. But now we're dealing with manufacturing delays. We're dealing with, longer times to get stuff shipped from one place to another.
So does a publisher then, when I'm assuming that, I'll ask you the question, I guess, do you get direct shipments from the manufacturer, or do you get direct shipments from the publishers?
The answer is yes to both. So there are some partners that we work with, like all of our exclusive partners, will be bringing stuff in directly from their manufacturer. So we're in tight enough with them that we know, months, if not years in advance, kind of what's on their roadmap. We'll be working with them and their manufacturers to ship stuff to us. It's funny because I always tell everybody, for me, there is no like 9 to 5 work day because I work with people in Europe. So I'm up at like 6 or 5 a.m. I'm working with people in Australia and China, and I'm on phone at like 9 and 10 p.m. So it's kind of all over the place. But we also do have, a lot of publishers that will warehouse their stuff somewhere in the United States or outside the United States, and we'll send them orders, and they'll, fulfill orders that way. So a couple of different ways to have it all come together.
So when you're talking about timelines, of course, the publisher is working directly with the manufacturer about all those specifics, and then they obviously need to notify you when the product is ready for shipment, all of those type of things, and then work out that logistics. But how does that affect GTS? As I'm understanding, different distributors, they also have a role in helping promote that product line to its channels, correct?
Sure, yeah. I always tell everybody, this is one of my favorite questions I get asked by publishers is, what are you doing with the partners that you're having the most success with that works? And it's actually pretty simple. as a publisher, whether you're working with us or really any distributor, the focus for a publisher should be on their consumers. It should be, I'm going to market to my consumer base. I'm going to make sure the people who are going to play my game know everything about my game, give them either teasers or full deep dives or whatever it is, but just keep those people engaged and aware and knowing that the game exists and is coming out, and then let your distribution partner handle the retailer marketing. And in this industry, it's kind of fun because a lot of the retailers are consumers as well. They're guys and girls that love the hobby, they love the industry, and while they're running a business and they're professional, retailers, they're also fans and they love to follow that stuff. But our marketing from a distribution standpoint is usually a lot more, specific. It's not as broad like, hey, there's this worker placement game, it's amazing, right? Like we're usually marketing to them about, yes, this is, a brand, a company, whatever it may be, but then we give them a lot of the details, right? How many come in a case, how big is it, all the kind of specifics that a retailer would need to be able to make decisions on, do we want to bring this game in or not? And I've tried, I don't know, I've tried to kind of approach it with a different tact, because to your point, I have a little bit of experience in a lot of different fields. I've designed and developed games. I've run companies. I've done sales and marketing. I've done media and social media. I've run a retailer at one point in my life as well. I still remember
many hats.
Yeah, a little bit of it. That's why I'm bald. So I still remember the day talking to my shop owner. I was like 18, 19 years old, and I was managing the store at 18 years old, already, doing everything for a couple of years there. And I remember looking at him going, we should buy some of this stuff. It's called Magic the Gathering, and it's like baseball cards, but it's like a game. And he goes, it's a fad. It's not gonna stick. And I'm like, okay. And then he came in like a week later, and like people were like on top of comic boxes playing Magic. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh yeah. This is the Magic the Gathering stuff you told me not to order. He's like, so why did you order it? And I'm like, well, we sold out of an entire case in about 7 minutes. And he's like, well, order more of it. It was pretty funny. But if anyone is from the upper Northeast area, it was Iron Vic's Comics and Games back in the day. That was the place. But I've tried to approach it with a different tact of, what would old Scott, running a publisher, want new Scott, being in distribution, to do for old Scott, right? That's kind of the attitude I've taken. I've tried to engage a lot more on the retail side. I think a lot of people on the distribution side, especially people in my role that are, working with the publishers and the partners, they can sometimes tend to be a little detached, from the retailers. Myself, I know Mike Paschal does a phenomenal job of it from PhD. And everyone does have, a lot of good relationships in the industry, but I've tried to put myself out there, and do webinars with retailers, give them insights to publishers that they may not normally get, which ironically, now that we're in COVID and we're in this situation where we can't all meet at shows, it's actually done a pretty good job, I think, in terms of, bringing people together so that they can, hear from the publishers directly on stuff.
Yeah, I see you do a page called it's called not Board Games Insider, but what's it called? Or Board Game Industry?
Yeah. Board Game Industry. That's one of the Facebook pages, the groups. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there for retailers to kind of connect together and get information about stuff that's coming out. When you're talking timing, like that's one of the most challenging things from a retailer standpoint, right? There's already 75, 80, 100 new games a week, it seems like, coming out. And that's definitely, that has tapered down a lot in this last 6-7 weeks.
So if a game is being delayed, the publisher notifies you. Mm-hmm. Does that affect, did you already have pre-planned advertising for these games based on release dates, and then you have to modulate?
Yeah. We have a lot of juggling. We always like to say we have a very agile team, right? So I don't run the marketing team. I don't run the sales team. I don't run the purchasing team, but I interface with them and get them all the information that they need to have to be able to make the decisions and the plans that they need to make as well. So we're a pretty interconnected team, which is pretty fun, actually, and exciting, because we're all kind of little bit remote in certain areas. So
We have a question from Eli. He says, are American manufacturers getting more work because of COVID?
that is a phenomenal question. I would probably, and this is not factual based, this is just feeling based on conversations I've had. I would say they've seen a slight bump, but I think that more European manufacturers are seeing the increase. When the original stuff started back in the beginning of March, and there was a lot of, China was locked down, there wasn't a chance to get anything out. That's where people started to look at things like Germany or Vietnam or Taiwan or places like that outside of there. So they Taiwan's not outside there. I don't know why I said that. That's stupid. But Vietnam has actually been a really big one for the last couple of years. They have a couple of companies in Vietnam that do really tremendous plastic work, like miniature work and stuff like that. So yeah, it's funny, and I don't want to make it political or anything like that, but this, just because manufacturing that is low cost and available isn't available doesn't mean everyone shifts to high cost manufacturing that is available, right? No matter what they want to do, there's a lot that they would have to do to make a manufacturing job affordable in the US. So it's pretty challenging. Eli says, I've noticed in the UK more manufacturers getting work. Yes, I believe that is the case. I think definitely UK, there's several of them. Germany, there's several. Ironically, it may shift things in the industry because if, to get something from Germany to the States versus China to the States, usually a little faster, right? So we normally see, and most people won't even believe this when I say this for the first time, we normally see about 30 to 45 days for something to leave a manufacturer in China and get to us. And that depends on a lot of different things. I mean, there's weather. I know of a container at the bottom of the ocean that has board games filled with it. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. But Germany is usually about like a 20 to 25 day turn, which is pretty quick. I mean, if you can cut your shipping time in half, and to the point earlier, if there's shows and you're selling and you're making profits, making those profits is faster is a lot better idea. So
I think the world is realizing that, relies too much on China to make
everything's
stuff
from China. And it's funny, you go to China and nothing's made in China. Everything's made somewhere else. So it's kind of funny.
Well, it's like anything, it's like the Chinese like whiskey, not sake. The French like whiskey as well. The Americans like champagne. It's just that kind of crossover diversity, isn't it? That's made over there. Yep. That must be good.
It's pretty fun to and I say it's pretty fun just because I live in it, but to follow the waterfall of a board game, right? From the absolute impetus of this is my idea and this is what I want to do as a designer, down to development, and then down to production, and then down to actual manufacturing. And because there's a lot of different things that happen in there, right? And you look at something like a Too Many Bones, I cannot imagine, I've never had this conversation with them, I should someday. I can't imagine how many iterations of the play mats that they went through to get those holes exactly the size they needed to have the dice fit in there and everything. I mean, that was probably tearing their hair out for stuff. So, and
yeah, that time lag for that back and forth communication and sampling and
it can be pretty crazy. And if you're not somebody, when you look at it from a global market perspective, and I tell this to a lot of people who think that it's cool to work in the game industry and get into the game industry, I tell them, look, that 9 to 5 workday doesn't exist, because you're going to be working with people that will email you something at 11:30 at night, and if you don't answer it right then and there, you're not going to get an answer for them for 2 or 3 days, possibly, between time shifts and everything.
Yes,
yeah,
Berkey.
Exactly.
So don't do it.
That can be really challenging. I mean, I've heard horror stories about stuff, happening, awry with stuff like that. So, but even.
Yeah, and you have a certain amount of translation and all of those things too, just making sure that you have clear understanding of expectations. And most of our products made in the United States, but we do to get our game mats because we don't have a good supply solution in the United States. And I have a fantastic gentleman in China that we work with that I've developed so much good rapport and trust with. The guy's amazing. But the back and forth, and we'd be in bed laying there at 10:30, and all of a sudden the phone, the messages are going off, and Joan just looks at me now and goes, China? I said, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, for the last couple of weeks, my boys have been playing Animal Crossing on the Switch, and I've seen so many people playing it, and I got sucked into it because it's basically like The Sims with these cute little cartoon characters, and it's super fun, and it's super neat. And you also need a lot of time to play, and I don't have that. So it's like it's been very painful to watch other people, and they're like, oh, I'm furloughed or I'm at home or whatever, and I'm like, I don't wish anyone to be furloughed or anything like that, but it's been kind of crazy. So.
Oh, you have to excuse me. What is furloughed? Is it like FUBAR?
No, kind of. Well, furloughed in American jargon basically means that you have been let go from your job with the strong opportunity of coming back. So it's like a temporary layoff kind of thing. So,
thank you.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of that, especially like I said earlier, there's so many different states that have so many different laws right now. It's kind of, even where we are in Kansas City, where I just moved to, like half of the city is on the Missouri side and half of it's on the Kansas side. And it's
weird.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's pretty crazy.
So Dorothy isn't there.
2 final questions I just want to pop in real quick, but how does GTS work with fulfillment and with Amazon, and do you get involved in that situation?
So 2 different things I'll take on that. So the first off is just fulfillment in general. We do not do fulfillment for anyone. We have, partners in the industry that we know that we refer people to. We really 110% focus around bringing good products in that our retailers can sell, and then promoting them and delivering them to the retailers. We're not worried about, onesie-twosie shipments that are going to go off to, 1,000 Kickstarter backers or anything like that. And quite frankly, the people that do it today, you mentioned them earlier, like Quartermaster Logistics, Fun Again Games, like the people that do it really well. So, if you're a Kickstarter project manager and you're not talking to one of those companies, I would highly recommend to do that. But Amazon is interesting because there's kind of 2 layers to the Amazon business. There's the actual Amazon business and what's happening online and selling games online. Sorry about that. There's the selling the games on. Yeah, they are. They're very excited. I think someone just came home, so sorry about that.
No, they're saying, don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're saying, the other side of it is Amazon fulfillment, because Amazon does a lot of fulfillment stuff on their own and FBAs and stuff like that. We don't. This is a very controversial topic in the distribution industry, because it's funny. I've said this for a very long time. As an industry, we tend to propagate falsehoods. We tend to allow people to make jokes or make snide remarks and these little cut corner things where it's very generalized. And I'm not a big fan of absolutes or generalization. I like being specific. I will say this as clear as I can. GTS does not do anything with Amazon. We don't sell to Amazon. We don't sell on Amazon. None of that stuff. There are distributors that do. In fact, there's distributors that are set up purposely just for selling to Amazon and not selling to hobby retailers. So our kind of bread and butter is the brick and mortar hobby retailers. And that makes up the bulk of, if you look at the United States and how many different retailers there are, that's the bulk of everything right there. It's a very dangerous thing from a distribution standpoint to even consider or think about stuff like that, right? Because if your primary consumer is the retailers and you're trying to support them, provide them products to be able to continue to grow and support their stores, doing stuff with somebody who is online and Amazon is kind of counter to that. Now, The 2 are mutually exclusive markets. And the reason I brought up the whole thing about the controversy is that there are a lot of people that will go around and be like, oh, there's some distributor that's selling to Amazon. And I can tell you right now, just from my experience, I don't think that's true at all. I think that there are distributors that their business is 100% Amazon, but that is not the guys in the hobby business at all. Had something maybe happened years ago before I was in distribution? Maybe, I don't know, right? But right now, I can confidently tell you the people that are trying to support the brick and mortar stores are truthfully trying to support the brick and mortar stores. We don't always make the right decisions. We're human, we screw up, and we all kind of take our lumps here and there, but we're trying to to do the best to support that backbone of the industry for everything. I think when you look at them from a market perspective, and it's funny because I just said I don't like generalizations, but I'm actually going to generalize on this. So yes, I know my own hypocrisy here, okay? But in general, a large portion of the people that buy on Amazon or any online store, cool stuff or a miniature market or a game nerds or anyone like that, they are not the consumer that is going into the brick and mortar store to buy. And they're not usually the consumer that the brick and mortar store owner is trying to attract in, right? I've already seen it thousands of times where someone is in a store and they pull up on their phone and they're like, hey, I can buy this for 20% off on Amazon. Will you match that? And they're like, no, I have a building and staff and electric bills and, things I have to pay for and stuff like that. And oh, by the way, you can play the game right here, even though you're going to walk out and not, right? Things like that. So they're very different consumers, right? The people who go to stores, like I think about my stores that I left in Austin that I miss so much. They're stores that were a community, right? I mean, you would go there and you would have your group and you would meet and have that kind of camaraderie. And you don't get that from online buying. Do you get a good price? Yeah, you get a good price. But there's people who live in areas that don't have the ability to go to a store. I've talked to some people who tell me that the closest store is like 4 hours away. And you're not just going to run to a store to go buy a $50 game, right? You're going to probably do that online. So I think the online market services a very specific clientele and type of consumer. And I think that the brick and mortar area market also does the same thing, a different type of consumer. There's always going to be swim lanes, where people cross over each other, and there's people who will buy at their local store and also buy online, and it just depends on stuff like that. But I'm willing to bet that I do it myself. I try to support local stores as much as I can, but when Otis is like 60-70% off, it's it's an easy thing to buy online, right? So yeah.
Well, so how do you expect, or what do you see happening as far as changes in distribution post-COVID and post-beyond? What things do you think are being implemented now that might stick, or what things might evolve into?
There was a lot of very interesting things, because when this happened, social distancing is like a commonplace term now. And 6-7 weeks ago, people were like, what? What does that mean? Like, does that mean I have to open Facebook in a different tab? Like, what does that mean, right? and our VP of Ops did some pretty amazing stuff, right? Because you got to think about this. Normally, day-to-day operations inside of a warehouse for a distributor, there's a certain number of people on the floor. They're pulling all the orders from the online system, whether it's put in by a rep or whether it's put in online. And then they're going and getting all of those things from the shelves. And the challenge is that every order is unique and every order is different, because I'm not just going to get this order and then go boom, 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 and all 3 or 5 things I need are right next to each other. Our warehouses can be upwards of 150,000 square feet. So you're constantly running all over the place to get those orders. So there's a lot of interaction, right? There's a lot of people are getting together and in the same aisle and trying to do things at the same time at the same place. And then once you have all that stuff and you bring it to your shipping station, you then have a shipping station where I might be able to high five the guy right next to me at my normal shipping station. So there's a lot of things that had to take into account of, okay, how do we plan the workforce correctly? How do we plan the timing correctly? How do we adjust, spacing in the warehouse to give people room to be able to work? And then on top of that, you layer all of the laws and, what you can do and what you can't do in certain areas. It got pretty crazy. Temperature checks, things like that, stuff that you would never think of 7 or 8 weeks ago, suddenly start happening as a commonplace thing.
Because GTS has warehouses all over the United States, right?
Yeah, it's actually, ironically, it's been one of the things that has helped us the most in this entire pandemic, is that we actually have 9 different warehouses in the United States. Even one in Hawaii, although they haven't let me go and inspect that one yet. I'm trying to, but they haven't done it yet. I think it's actually my owner's garage. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, we have kind of a hub and spoke model. And if you look at a lot of the other distributors that we're competitors with, they have, I think, at most 5 is one of them. But most of them have 3, maybe 4. And if just one of those gets shut down for any reason whatsoever, that can put a pretty big impact onto the business for stuff. So for us, we've had, a lot of conversations about people over profits, protecting your people first and making sure you're in it for the long run. We've had a lot of conversations about, how we can kind of load balance, like when things started and everything was in Everett, Washington, that's where our home office is, right? So we started diverting a lot of orders to Northern and Southern California and St. Louis and things like that to shift things around. So, but that's actually been one of the really nice things. We actually also have 2 warehouses in China. Most people don't know about that because from the board game side, we really don't do a lot of business in China. It's primarily sports and sports memorabilia because it pretty much in China goes from God to LeBron James to everybody else. So he's very, very popular over there.
Oh. Do you have any other questions for Scott Badger?
Yeah, Eli says again, have you noticed a drive in solo and 2-player games since COVID?
Yes, very much so. There was already a little bit of a shift prior to COVID for some people doing some solo games. We've seen a lot more manufacturers getting into it. A lot more publishers have been telling us, hey, this was a 2 to 4 game. It's now a 1 to 5 game or a 1 to 4 game. Just trying to add in solo rules for stuff like that. The solo, games that exist, things like, Tapestry maybe or Scythe or things like that come to mind that have a great, solo engine. Those things have definitely taken a spike. It's definitely something. The other thing too, which most people don't think about at first, but if you've gone to your local Target or Walmart, you'll see it. Puzzles. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Puzzles.
Oh, yeah.
We can't print that stuff fast enough right now. There's so many people that want puzzles right now, which I think is great. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
so.
It's easy to do and then not easy to do at the same time. You don't need rules.
Right. That's right. That's right.
We just saw a puzzle be destroyed yesterday by a little 3-year-old.
Ooh.
That was kind of fun.
There's a game in there.
No, but all interesting stuff from behind the scenes.
Yeah, like I said, it's not the sexy side of the business, right? It's the side where you're dealing with a lot of challenges and delays and all the crazy stuff. But it is also, I've told people, the last 2 years of doing this role in distribution has taught me so much more than I probably learned more in the last 2 years than I could have as a decade as a publisher. And, both about the business, but also, just the kind of the secondary layer of business that happens in between things. And
also learning about the mannerisms of board game players and what kind of things.
Completely.
Yeah, because I mean, you had the knack way back in the day when you said Magic the Gathering is going to be a thing. I'm going to buy this box of Magic the Gathering without my boss knowing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If that didn't sell, I probably would have been fired. But so it all worked out, so it's all good. But yeah, no, I think it's an interesting time, obviously, because of COVID and the challenges. I think to your point about what's going to change, I think distribution for the most part will stay very similar with some major operational changes that we've done recently. I think retailers are going to have a challenging time when it comes back to people coming together and sitting across tables from each other. I saw a thing the other day. There was a TCG tournament going on where they had plastic screens, like plexiglass screens in front of each other. So I think, I think there's going to be a lot of changes from that. Ironically, and I think this is great, I've had a lot of retailers hit me in the last 6-7 weeks who have been telling me, I don't know how to do anything online. Like, I've always been a brick and mortar store and I need to sell stuff and I'm open, but how do I take online orders? What do I do? Like, there's been so many people who have branched out and really explored and found other opportunities, which I think is great. Because now when things come back to normal, they're going to have that as another tool in their wheelhouse, right? Yes, I'm your friendly local game store, but if you just want to order it online and come pick it up, that's great, right? You can just do that.
And that was such a big issue a while back, especially with like, Asmodee products, that there were limitations on whether you could, in fact, sell your stuff online. And people were kind of doing it on the backside and all kinds of different things. But this was a huge problem because people weren't able to get rid of some of their inventory that they normally got rid of through that method.
Yep.
And I don't know if maybe that's going to change, where the freedom for stores to be able to market their product will be less restrictive.
I think both. I think you're going to see both. I think you're going to see both more restrictive and less restrictive, and it's going to kind of come by different publishers. There's several publishers who, in the last probably 3 years, have done a really good job of looking at the market and saying, okay, there's mass market, there's online market, there's brick and mortar market, there's all these different avenues that there's Astra, there's toy stores that I can market to. And if you just try to treat them all the same, it's not going to really get you anywhere. I always say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And the people who have really put down their map and said, this is what we're going to do, right? This is our path to success. This is how we're going to handle online. This is how we're going to handle brick and mortar. This is how we're going to handle mass. Just having those types of like executive plans put together of how to manage it, we're seeing the most success out of it. Now, some of them have been really restrictive and some of them have not been restrictive. They've been pretty open. I think a lot of that comes down to, are you a free market guy or not a free market guy, right? There's a lot of different areas in that. I do think that, again, like we talked earlier, the big getting big and the small getting small. I think the big guys that are growing big are going to have a lot more, I don't want to say this is a negative word, they're going to have a lot more control, but they're going to have control with the mindfulness of the market that they're serving, which is really important.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're about up for time here. I think this was super fun.
This was.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
I'm glad that Don won the game and got me out of jail, so I'm really excited about that. So thank you, Don. I promise I will lose to Don in the first round of fantasy football this year, if there is such a thing. So
and collect $200.
Right. Yeah.
Pass and go. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have that fantasy football league this year, right?
That would be great. But no, thank you guys for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I love both of you guys, man. You guys do some amazing things for this industry and some awesome things for this industry that a lot of people may not even know that you are involved in and that you do. But it's really good stuff, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, speaking of friends in the industry, I just want to make a real quick shout out. We've got a good friend of ours, Rob McBride, that has just an amazing game out called Babble, the All War. I've never seen a prototype designed and developed this well before. I've played the game. Many other notable folks have taken a look at this and are just raving about it. It's on Kickstarter right now, and there's only 6 days left. So go check it out. It hasn't funded yet. I think during this COVID time, it was bad timing, to be honest with you. It's a little bit bigger Kickstarter and a little bit more in. And there was a couple big titles out at the same time and a little bit of uncertainty, but this game is fantastic. Go check it out. There's a great Dice Tower preview. Jimmy Hudson from the Board Game Closet, Quackalope, Brawling Brothers, The Undead Viking. You can see what this game is about. I'd highly recommend to go check it out. It's really amazing. It's an epic space battle. Twilight Imperium meets Axis and allies in 4 hours.
Yeah, and quickly in 4 hours. I've played that game twice at conventions, and when you think about a convention game, you don't think about a 3 to 4 hour game. Like if somebody said to me at Gen Con, let's go play Twilight Imperium, I'm like slit my throat. I don't want to do that, right?
It just wouldn't work, right?
But this was pitched as Twilight Imperium, but faster. And I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. I mean, they have a thing on their Kickstarter page that I saw when you were scrolling through where it says, game starts the minute you open up the box. They're not kidding. Like when we sat down to play, they were like immediately, this is what you're doing, this is where you're going, this is how you operate. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So yeah, and they've done a lot of good job like going to shows and putting that out in front of people. So that I can definitely say from my 2 plays, it was very, very fun.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Yeah, Rob is really the guy has really put a lot into it. So yeah. I really hope this will succeed for him. And he's really done his homework. And I think it'll provide a lot of fun to people. Our other good friends at the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, Jamie Keggy and Chris and Steve and Tony Topper and all the crew there are doing their annual fundraiser. It's doing pretty well right now. It's at really close to about $50,000. They really need about $80,000 a year to be able to staff and do everything they're doing. So I think there's about 20 some days left, but they've got some amazing things on the Kickstarter. They've got a new game bag. They have a ton of new Secret Cabal swag and a brand new design from Jamie Keggy for the Secret Cabal logo on our #1 selling Watson Game Topper game mat. It's a 38 by 60 stitched edge 3mm premium. And this logo that they have, it's fantastic. I think you'll like it. You can check out on Kickstarter the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast. And I think with that, we're how can people find us, Barry?
I've just managed to find that on Kickstarter.
Oh, there you go. Secret Cabal. There it is.
I can't spell secret.
It's a secret. That's
Scroll
right.
up to see if you can scroll down a little bit and you can see the new design on the game mat. It's really cool.
Jamie's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
They just do a great job. Don and the whole crew. There's a Gloomhaven. There's the new design.
That's beautiful.
It's just super cool. I think people are going to really dig it. And that whole group is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, good people.
So, yeah, you can find us on BoardGameTheatre.com or on BoardGamesEverybodyShould.com. You can also find our Board Game Geek Guild on Board Game Geek, evidently.
2248.
Do that synced.
224 2852.
Clear as mud.
50198. 90120.
8675309.
And of course, you can find us on Facebook, Berkey and Badger, and YouTube, Berkey and Badger, Board Game Babble. And where can we find Mr. Talks if we need to see him?
Oh.
Where are you?
I'm everywhere, man. Just search Scott Morrison Board Gaming and you'll find me somewhere. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, all over the place. And then from a work perspective, it's gtsdistribution.com. So Greg Thomas Scott, although it doesn't stand for that. It's a secret. I can't tell people what it stands for.
Yeah, and you had me worried earlier at the beginning of the Babble topic when you said you were the gatekeeper. I was waiting for the keymaster as well.
Yeah, that's my boss. My boss is the keymaster. Yes.
Okay, so you're preparing for the arrival of Goza, which is always good to know.
Yep, there is no Scott, only Zool.
So there you have it. There is our show. This audio will be mixed into an audio podcast, which you can enjoy at your own leisure, or you can rewatch this video and look at our ugly mugs. So I will say thank you very much for watching. Berkey will say thank you very much for watching as well, won't you, Berkey?
Thank you very much for watching.
And we'd like to thank Scott once again, and our supporters, Game Toppers, and Arcane Wonders. Thank you very much. Thank you again for listening to Berkey and Badger's Board Game Babble. This show was written, produced, and performed by Kevin Burkhardt-Smyer and Barry Doublet, as was the music too, with a little help from the Balance of Power. Although the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly theme was composed by Ennio Morricone, and background effects were supplied by Syrinscape. Enhance your gaming at Syrinscape.com. Join us next time where we might have a special guest, or we may review a game. But either way, there'll be more craziness and more babbling.